Hi there, I'm Jeremy Krug, and this is my complete AP Chemistry course. In this video, we're going to be learning about ionic and covalent bonding, and specifically in this video, it's the ionic part of that. In the following video, we'll be looking at covalent bonding and how that works. Like I said, this is my complete AP Chemistry course, and so if you haven't already done so, make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss a thing, and you can get that 5 on your AP exam. Now, when we talk about ionic bonding specifically, we know that metals and nonmetals form ionic bonds. So just in case you've forgotten, metals are those elements that are found on the left side of the periodic table, and nonmetals are generally found on the right side of the periodic table. So if we were to take these two elements here, sodium and chlorine, well, we know that those two elements have certain electron configurations, as we can see right here. You know, sodium has, it looks like it has one valence electron, as we can see in its electron configuration, and chlorine, based upon this, seems to have 7 valence electrons. And so what happens, as you might remember from first year chemistry, is sodium tends to lose an electron. It actually will donate that one valence electron right there to chlorine, and therefore chlorine is going to be receiving that one valence electron from the sodium. And so how does that work? Well, when sodium has now lost that electron, it's down to this electron configuration, has 8 valence electrons, and chlorine has gained that electron, and we can see it has gone up to 8 valence electrons. And so they both have that stable, full outer shell, outer energy level. So if we can think about it like this, we now have 2 ions. We have a sodium cation, this Na plus over here, and we have this Cl negative, this chloride anion over here. Now, if these 2 ions are very far apart, like we have over here, you know, there's a sodium over here, and there's a chlorine over there, we say that that has a very high potential energy state. When ions tend to be farther apart from each other, they have a higher potential energy state. Well, when they move together like this, well, now they have a lower potential energy state. So remember, farther apart, higher potential energy, closer to each other, lower potential energy. Now, when we talk about ionic bonds, well, ionic bonds produce ionic compounds. And ionic compounds has some fairly important characteristics that you need to know about. For example, ionic compounds generally have a fairly high melting point. If you're familiar with crystals like, for example, sodium chloride, a regular table salt, it has a pretty high melting point. You can't just put that on a stove and expect it to melt. Also, ionic compounds tend to be kind of brittle. When you hit them, they tend to shatter into smaller crystals. They're not very malleable. If you've ever seen a large crystal, you know that they tend to be quite delicate, and therefore they're not very malleable or able to be hammered into a sheet at all. If you take these ionic bonds, or these ionic compounds rather, and dissolve them into water, well, they conduct electricity, and we can actually see that with a simple conductivity tester, and that's why we call them electrolytes. Ionic compounds are very good conductors of electricity when you dissolve them in water, so we actually call them strong electrolytes. We'll talk about that a little bit more in an upcoming lesson. Now, normally, ionic compounds are soluble in polar solvents, such as water, although to varying degrees. Some ionic compounds are really soluble, and some are not that soluble. We'll talk more about that later as well in a future video. Now, one of the neat things about ionic compounds is they're organized into a repeating crystal structure called a crystal lattice. Now, here's a picture of an example of that. This was made with a scanning tunneling microscope. So we can actually start to see some of the individual atoms, some of those individual ions there in the crystal lattice. So yes, it's a very orderly, repeating pattern of ions there in that crystal lattice. As you can see, very beautiful and very orderly. It's that repeating pattern. Now, when we talk about ionic compounds, well, This ionic bonding works because after the metal donates electrons to a nonmetal, we now have these two oppositely charged ions, a cation that's positive and an anion that's negative. And the reason that they stick together and form that very strong ionic bond is because of what we call these electrostatic attractions. The fact is that we have positives and we have negatives, and the opposite charge forces there cause them to stick together very, very well. So when we say electrostatic attractions, that's what we're talking about. It's these opposite charges that are attracting. That's what we're talking about when we say electrostatic attractions. Now, as a result, ionic bonds are just about the strongest chemical bonds that you can have. If we take a look at that, we can actually see that this affects the melting point of these substances. For example, sodium fluoride. That's composed of one sodium ion for every one fluoride ion. And its melting point is 993 degrees Celsius. That's pretty high. If we look at magnesium fluoride, it's composed of one magnesium cation and two fluoride anions. Its melting point is even higher. It's 1,263 degrees Celsius. And here we have aluminum fluoride made of one aluminum cation and three fluoride anions. Its melting point is even higher still. It's 1,290 degrees Celsius. Now, if you look at this, do you notice that there's kind of a pattern? It seems that as the magnitude of the charge increases, the melting point increases as well. We see that here, that as the charge goes up, the melting point of the compound goes up as well. This is a function, this is easily explained, I should say, by Coulomb's law. We've talked about Coulomb's law already several times in this course, and here we go again. We know that the stronger or the higher the magnitude of the charge, let's say we have a +3 and a -3, well, that charge or that attraction is going to be much stronger. This is a stronger attraction than if we have a +1 and a -1. There's an attraction there too, but it's not as strong as when the magnitude of the charge is higher. So that's why we can say sodium chloride has a pretty high melting point, 801 degrees Celsius. That's not low by any means. But if we talk about a 2+ and a -2, well, look how the melting point goes up, 2,000 degrees Celsius for magnesium sulfide. And if we have a +3, -3, like we exemplified up here, like aluminum phosphide, look at how high the melting point goes now. It's up to 2,530 degrees Celsius. So once again, the higher the magnitude of the charge, the higher the melting point. So let's try an example here. Which of these compounds would you expect to have the highest melting point? Would it be lithium chloride or would it be magnesium chloride? Well, we can compare these easily by looking at the magnitude of the charge. Lithium is a +1, chloride's -1, +1, -1. Magnesium is a +2, and chloride's a -1. So the higher magnitude of the charge, this pair over here, should have the higher melting point. So that's why magnesium chloride is the one that's got the higher of the two melting points. And if we look at the actual numerical values, we can see that that indeed is the case. Magnesium chloride is over 100 degrees Celsius higher in its melting point than lithium chloride is. So that's a nice, easy way to predict what the melting points of these ionic compounds will be like. Well, let's talk about if we have this situation. What if the charges of the ions are the same? So we talked earlier about the +1, -1 being a fairly strong charge, but not as strong as some others. What if we have lithium fluoride? Well, we know that that has a melting point of about 848 degrees Celsius. That's a +1, -1. Well, here's another pair, an ion pair that's also a +1, -1, sodium chloride, and its melting point is 801 degrees Celsius. It's a little bit lower, as you can see. And if we go to some ions that are even larger still, like potassium and bromide, those are also +1, -1, but the melting point is still lower, 734 degrees Celsius. Do you notice the pattern here? It seems like as the ion pair sizes get larger, the melting point gets lower. And it's kind of hard to see that, but it says melting point decreases as ionic size increases. And once again, this is easily explained by Coulomb's law. The farther apart the ions are, the lower the attractive force is going to be. And so that's why we can say that when the ionic nuclei are farther apart from each other, the attractive forces between them get weaker. And so that makes sense, hopefully, according to Coulomb's law. The larger the ionic size, the weaker the attraction is going to be. It's going to require less energy to pull those ions apart from each other. Therefore, we can say that smaller ion pairs are going to have the higher melting point, and that certainly is the case here. Lithium fluoride, the smaller ion pair, has a higher melting point than the larger ion pair with potassium bromide here. Now, speaking of these melting points and the energy that there is between, or the force there between those two ions, this has to do with something we call lattice energy. Lattice energy is defined as the energy released when the ions are combined into an ionic compound. And normally, we know that there are stronger ionic forces associated with the higher magnitude of lattice energy. So this is the example that we said had the highest melting point right there, lithium fluoride. And so we're talking about 1,030 kilojoules per mole released when that bond is formed. When we have a larger ion pair, like sodium and chloride, well, the lattice energy is not quite as much. We're talking about 786 kilojoules per mole released when that compound is formed. And the largest ion pair of all that we had in our three examples there, it's got the lowest magnitude of lattice energy. So 688 kilojoules per mole when those larger ion pairs are combined to make the compound. So once again, the higher lattice energy is going to be with the smaller ion pairs. Lithium and fluoride are a whole lot smaller than potassium and bromide are. So let's take a little review here and see if we can make some predictions. So in each of the following pairs, which ionic compound would have the higher melting point? So we'll start with this case here, aluminum fluoride, or is it magnesium chloride? And once again, let's look at the charges first. That's usually our first decision here. So aluminum is a +3 and fluoride is a -1. Magnesium is a +2 and chloride is a -1. So once again, the higher magnitude is going to have the higher melting point. So looks like it's aluminum fluoride, and looks like we got it right. Let's try the next example here, sodium bromide and calcium oxide. Let's try the charge again. So sodium is a +1 and bromide is a -1. Calcium is a +2 and oxide is a -2. And by the way, we see these charges from their locations on the periodic table and also from the ion chart that we talked about here a couple of weeks ago. So we can see that the one that has the higher magnitude of charge is the calcium oxide. And sure enough, it has the higher melting point. Looks like we got it right. Let's try another example. Strontium bromide and calcium fluoride. So strontium is a +2. Bromide is a -1. Calcium is a +2 and fluoride is a -1. So it's a tie. So since it's a tie, we now look at the ionic sizes. And if we look at the periodic table, we can see that calcium and fluoride are actually much smaller. They're higher up on the table than strontium and bromine are. So that means that calcium fluoride would be the smaller ion pair. So that's going to have the higher melting point. And sure enough, we got it right. Let's try one more example here. Calcium chloride and sodium oxide. Let's compare the charges first. So calcium's a +2, chloride's a -1, sodium's a +1, oxide's a -2. So once again, while we have this 2-1 comparison, it's pretty much the same. So now we have to compare ion pair sizes, or the sizes of our ion pairs. And by looking at the periodic table, we can see that oxide and sodium are both smaller, they're higher up on the periodic table than calcium and chloride are. So that means that sodium and oxide would be the smaller ion pair, and that would have the higher melting point. And sure enough, we got that right as well. So with this method, you can predict with a pretty good amount of accuracy which ionic compound will have the higher melting point or the lower melting point, whichever the case may be, just by looking at first of all, the charges, and then second of all, the sizes of the ions. Let's do one more example here. The AP exam likes to ask questions like this sometimes. Which of the two metallic chlorides pictured here would have the higher melting point? Well, since they're both chlorides, and they're both metallic chlorides, and looks like the ratio of ions is 1:1, we can pretty much be safe in saying that they're both +1 -1s. Since it's a 1:1, chloride's a -1, so they'd have to both be +1 -1 because the ratio is 1:1. And so since the charge is the same, we have to think about the ion sizes. And so over here, we have the smaller ion sizes. And so the attraction will be stronger since there's a smaller distance between those ions. So according to Coulomb's law, this one here should have the higher melting point. Let's see if we got it right. The explanation that's given to us here is, since the ions are present in a 1:1 ratio for both compounds, the metal charge must be +1 in each case. So we got that right. Charge is not a factor. The ion centers are closer to each other in the second compound, so the ionic attractions would be stronger. As a result, the chloride on the right has the higher melting point. So hopefully at this point you're able to make some predictions about melting points for ionic compounds, which often is asked on the AP exam. And hopefully you're also able to understand some properties of ionic compounds as well. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. If you did, smash that like button. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Tell your friends that this is the complete AP Chemistry course. Hope you can join me again. I'm Jeremy Krug, and come back later where we can learn some more chemistry together.